NextGen Nation. Good morning and welcome. We're so excited to have you join us for today's NextGen Government Training Summit. My name is Doug Mashkuri. I'm Vice President and General Manager at GovLoop, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Sheila Helke, President of Young Government Leaders. Before we get started, I do want to thank one person that's not on the call today. Emily Jarvis, our Director of NextGen and the face of NextGen for those that have been here in prior years, is at home enjoying her maternity leave, and we're so thrilled for her. The months leading up to Emily's maternity leave, however, she spent tons of time building today's program. You're going to enjoy today's program. It's the fruits of Emily's hard work. And Emily, if you're watching, and I hope you're not, thank you very much. We appreciate everything you've done to support NextGen Nation. So this is our 13th year. We've done 13 of these, and each year we grow a little bit, and we grow with you, the great government community here. So I'm so excited to jump in today's sessions. We have so much information for you to help you if you're a first-time supervisor, aspiring to be a supervisor, an experienced supervisor that's looking up to brush up on your skills. You are in the right place today. We're going to have an awesome day, and let's get rolling.
Mm-hmm. Yes, good morning, everyone. We're so excited to dive into our opening keynotes for today. But before we get started, Doug and I are going to be covering a few simple housekeeping items just to make sure everyone is ready for today. And first, I wanted to share the main environment where you all just came in from. You can see that there are areas that you can access from the lobby page. There is the conference hall, and that's where you're going to access the keynotes, the breakout sessions throughout the day. You can also move over to the networking lounge where you can chat with your fellow government peers, and make sure to swing by sometime to just say hi to everyone. You can also fill out your passport by visiting the booths in the exhibit hall. Over there, you'll find our sponsors who are ready to answer any questions you may have, and they have a ton of helpful resources, so make sure to check it out. Plus, the more active you are in that environment, the higher you'll rise on our leaderboard. And the top 100 leaderboard participants will all win $15 Amazon gift cards, so make sure not to miss out on that. We also have a resource center, and that holds the CPE evaluations, the slide decks, and also today's agenda. So if you miss any of the CPE evaluations or slide decks from the event console, you can always access them over in the resource center. And then lastly, if there's any questions on the environment, issues you run into, or questions on content, you can always head over to the help desk, and our colleagues Leah and Karina will be there to assist you.
All right, thanks, Sheila. We have some more housekeeping items to cover, and then we're going to get going. So first of all, if you're on Twitter, we'd love to hear, share what you're learning. Please use the hashtag NextGenGov to share your takeaways. We also have great additional resources available for you to download on the console. It's on the right-hand side. This includes the slide deck and tons of other information, so please check it out. If you want access to closed captioning feature, just look at the icon at the bottom right-hand side of the media player, and you'll have access to closed captioning. Also, we hope you don't have any technical difficulties, but if you do, send us a message to the Q&A tab, and my colleague Maddie will get your questions answered. In that same Q&A section, you can also ask questions of our speakers. We also have an open chat available for you today, so please don't be shy. We want to hear from you. Access the open chat, click on the blue group chat button in the middle of the panel of your screen, and you can interact with us and others attendees here. Don't worry about it. If you miss a few tidbits, we'll email you a link to the entire event tomorrow, which will go directly to your inbox. You're going to hear these housekeeping items a lot today. I hope you enjoy the day. We have a few more things to talk about before we get to our awesome keynotes. So, all right, with housekeeping out of the way, I want to send a special thank you to our NextGen Alliance partners. These partners have graciously supported the public sector community and supported NextGen and GovLoop to allow today's content to be presented to you. So a special thank you to American University School of Public Affairs, Blue Cross Blue Shield, GEHA, Gov White Papers, Red Hat, and Rubric. This event wouldn't be possible without your support. Finally, let's talk about CPEs for today. You can gain CPEs today. So first, you can get one CPA for your participation in today's session. Be sure to take all the polls, there'll be 3 of them, participate in the entire session, and fill out the post-event CPE evaluation to obtain your CPE credit. The CPE evaluation can be found in the resource module on the console or at the resource center in the main environment. All CPEs will be emailed to you directly once we confirm you've met all the requirements.
And speaking of CPE credits, we're going to launch our first poll question right now. So the poll question will come up on your slide window area, and then after you answer it, you can click the submit button to send in your response. And now our first poll question, we want to know, have you attended NextGen before? And the responses are, this is my first time, yes, I have, no, or I can't remember, it's been too long. And while everyone's taking the time to fill out the poll question, I'm going to talk about today's first speaker. So the opening keynote is going to be on the future of the government workforce. A new, more diverse generation of employees are now entering agencies. They're bringing new attitudes, ways of thinking, and at the same time, agencies are adopting emerging technology that could change how these employees get their work done. So what will this mean for the future? In this lightning keynote, you're going to hear about the trajectory of the government workforce going forward. And today I'm excited to announce that we're joined by Kiran Ahuja. She's the Director of the U.S. Office of Personnel Management, and Director Ahuja leads OPM in its work to recruit, retain, and honor the American workforce. That's doing everything from landing today's rovers on Mars, fighting climate change and cancer, and also building the country back better. She is also the first South Asian American and first Asian American woman to lead OPM. But before I hand the floor over to her, let's see what the responses are for our poll. So it looks like many are here for the first time. Welcome. And a lot of you are back. So we're so excited to welcome you. And I would like to kick the floor over to Director Ahuja.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here at GovLoop's NextGen Government Training Summit. Since 2010, this event has set a high bar for inspiring, developing, and preparing rising government leaders. So I think it's true to the innovative mindset we're all here to foster that this year GovLoop, I hear, has raised the bar on NextGen, and I'm hearing all the accolades that are being given to someone who unfortunately is not here presently, but I hear is on probably very well-deserved paternity leave. So not only do you have, I'm hearing, 2 dates instead of 1 to participate, but thanks to a new sponsorship model, both of these events have been free. So it's almost like the cost of your admission is just your willingness to pursue professional growth. I think that's pretty sweet. So before I get going, I want to take a moment to give a shout out to the GovLoop team, and thank you very much for that introduction. But moreover, thank you for the lives that you and your team have impacted through your work and the public service you've strengthened as a direct result. You know, GovLoop's mission is simple, which we so appreciate here at OPM. It's connect government to improve government. It's easy to see how they bring that mission to life. In the 13 years that this NextGen training has existed, my team tells me more than 5,000 federal, state, and local public servants have leaned into their own leadership thanks to this event, which is just like what each of you are doing today. I think that's a tremendous legacy of impact and accomplishment. You know what it says to me as the leader of the federal agency dedicated to attracting and retaining the best and brightest talent for our workforce? It says that all of you are committed to the humans we refer to when developing policies in human resources or human capital. Capital as in the critical investment in the form of people. You understand that government policies are brought to life by people, people who deserve to be honored and respected, supported, elevated for their contributions, and compensated with the income and benefits they earn through their hard work. If we want to ensure that government is prepared to succeed in the future of work, then we need to have the right people in the right roles right now. So getting them there takes a focus on retention as much as it does on recruitment. It takes opportunities for professional growth, and it takes policies that truly honor the contribution of the workforce. That's how we ensure we have a workforce that doesn't just rise to meet the demands of today, but lays the groundwork for America to succeed for decades to come. Success in this work requires people who understand their leadership is indispensable. The pathways to the senior-most roles in public service are as varied as the people who take them. But every senior leader has something in common with each of you. They know their leadership matters. They know their leadership is worth investing time and effort to develop. And they know their time spent in mentorship opportunities, collaboration, and knowledge sharing will become the foundation their next career step is built upon. So I want to thank you for taking time to cultivate your own success and for making a difference to public service. But you're here to know how you can grow your impact beyond your own work. And I want you to know what's being done to set you, me, all of us up for success in the future. The Biden-Harris administration celebrates your commitment to professional excellence. We know our workforce is the government's greatest and most important asset. That's why the president made strengthening, empowering, and equipping the federal workforce the first priority of his president's management agenda, or what we like to call the PMA. So if you haven't read the PMA, I think personally you should put it at the top of your reading list. It could be some great nighttime reading, or skip a night of binge reruns of Ted Lasso or Parks and Recreation. And I know that I am revealing myself a bit right now in the things that I watch after a long day. Because as a whole, the PMA ties together the priorities for all federal agencies. You know, we like to think about it as like a blueprint to deliver the government that the American people deserve. And OPM is proud to lead on its first priority, which is to honor and uplift the federal workforce. So I want to tell you, I've been in government, in and out of government quite a few times. I've worked on PMAs before. I'm very excited about this one, especially because it puts the workforce front and center. And the reason why I'm asking you to put it by your nightstand and take a look at it is that the more people we have paying attention to this important management plan, the more you can hold us accountable, we can hold each other accountable for what we seek to achieve as public servants. And we know right now we're in an extremely competitive labor market. We've got a lot of issues that we need to tackle. I know we are feeling the weight of what it means to serve, what our roles require of us right now, and what we seek to achieve in the coming years. And we know in order to retain people, we have to connect with why they go to work in the first place. And you know the profile of a public servant because you are one. It is someone who's driven by impact, who wants to make a difference, who wants to be part of something bigger, and who wants to build a better life for themselves and their family. To that end, OPM is working hard to ensure that every job serving our country is a good job. The federal government has contributed to the American tradition of the strong middle class, with solid jobs that support communities, especially in communities of color. That is our foundation and legacy to build on, and I often remind folks of that the federal government was the pathway for many individuals back in the day when the private sector did not provide those pathways. On behalf of this administration, OPM also implemented a $15 minimum wage for federal employees, which immediately raised the pay for more than 67,000 people, many of whom have been on the front lines throughout the pandemic. What does that mean? In many ways, a federal job should be a good job, should be a good paying job. We should absolutely make sure that anyone working in the federal government is not making less than $15 an hour. But we also want to send a signal to the rest of the country, to employers across the country, small and big, of what it requires to have a living wage. This year, the administration also proposed an average 4.6% pay increase in its FY23 budget. That is not insignificant, and we will continue to push on the kind of pay that public servants deserve. And we will continue to fight for compensation that reflects the value of all of you, which also includes the benefits that you've earned and deserve. So public servants are in the business of doing big things, as you heard earlier. We like to talk about it. I just came from the Sammys last night, and hearing about the incredible work that each of you do every single day. You know, we're about curing disease. We're about ensuring that this pandemic that we've all been living through, that we can come out the other end as whole as possible. It's about combating climate change, other natural disasters, also to all the really amazing positive things of what this universe holds, such as landing rovers on the surface of Mars, looking at the pictures that are coming back from the Webb telescope. The next generation of workers is ready to make an impact, and we need their fresh perspectives and new skills. We need all of you who are finding your way in federal government. We also need to make sure that you stay as long as you can. You know well as I do that individuals who are early in their careers will ensure our hard work and legacy live on. Early career professionals are vital to our continued success. So here's the catch, because there's been a recent study, and I was reading these data on where young people are, early career talent, are on how they're thinking about the federal government in particular. And I don't have the statistics on state and local government, but I think there may be a little bit of a trend here that we can follow. So nearly half of students enrolled in certificate programs and vocational colleges say they won't consider a job in the federal government. More than half of recent graduates say they won't consider federal employment. 20% of students and recent graduates say they aren't aware of federal jobs. And 60% of minority graduates say they would not consider federal employment. I can't tell you how much that pains me to hear those stats, but what it does is really empower me to say, what more can we do? And what do we need to do to get the word out about the benefits of starting a career in the public service, period. Once again, I'm going to go back to this PMA, which is right on point and lays out what we are setting ourselves to do, what we're setting out to do in order to really focus on early career talent. It means charging agencies with building early career talent positions into their workforce strategies when they're thinking about these positions. And oftentimes there is this tendency to be like, I need to get the most experienced person who can hit the ground running. But we also need to think about how we're building that pipeline, how we're giving individuals an opportunity to develop and mentor, because we know folks can do this work. It's about taking what you've learned in different jobs and different positions in your educational path to bringing that to bear in the work that we're doing in the federal government. We're increasing the number of paid internships and want to increase the number of interns hired into full-time positions. My motto is, gone are the days of like the free labor in Washington, D.C. when it comes to interns. We have to make this more accessible. This is absolutely also a part of our diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility agenda in the federal government. Together, we're building a talent pipeline for the future. Let me tell you a few other things that we're thinking about that you may not know about as you think about how you're trying to also build your teams, whether in the federal government or elsewhere. But particularly in the federal government, we've released hiring authorities to help agencies bring recent graduates into their workforce a lot easier with a starting salary of $72,000 a year coming out of school. We're partnering more with community colleges and trade schools and MSIs, minority-serving institutions, and historically Black colleges and universities, Hispanic-serving institutions, ANAPISIs, schools with large tribal student populations. Hopefully you're aware of a lot of these great schools. This is what we need to focus on within OPM, across all our agencies, about how we are promoting greater diverse recruitment. And we're working to update the regulations for the Pathways program, which offers paid internships and fellowships, including the prominent Presidential Management Fellowship. We know there are talented people out there with the skills we need. We want to recruit them. We've got to do a better job, and that is what we're focused on. But we need each of you as our ambassadors, talking about your experiences, talking about why this work is meaningful to you, and being out there and encouraging your friends and colleagues to join. We're in the midst of surge hiring across the federal government in ways that I had not seen before. We are bringing in people to help us implement on the bipartisan infrastructure law. We just passed the CHIPS Act. We have work on the Inflation Reduction Act. There is so much incredible work happening across government. Hopefully you're involved in some of that, but we need a lot more folks coming in. So we know we needed this group of talented people. We also need the skills we need. We also know that it's critical to break down the barriers of what has been what we call the traditional qualifications for coming into public service. So the question we asked ourselves was, why should someone who learned their skills on the job be less valuable than someone who learned their same skills on the college campus? They shouldn't be, and they're not. So I want to make sure you're aware of this, because this is what we're requiring federal agencies to do. And this is the wave of the future of expanding our talent pools. So this last May, OPM issued guidance making it easier for agencies to pursue candidates who have the skills, experience, and are a good fit for public service, even if they don't have a bachelor's degree. So we're looking at every position description, every job series to say, what does this require? Can an individual get this job experience in a different way? Is a college degree required for this particular position? And in this way, we're expanding talent pools. We're removing barriers to employment for underrepresented groups. So this leads me to the future of work and how we're preparing the future, really the federal workforce, to lead that change. We want to lead that change. We're the largest employer in this country at more than 2 million plus in the civilian workforce. We have the ability to make some significant impact, but we've also got some tough issues to navigate, and the push and pull that's taking place between what employees desire around flexibility and what we're trying to achieve around our mission and customer service. You know that our mission is about being so focused on the American public, on serving our country the best way we can. And our missions evolve, and the nature of our work does too. So we need to identify those skills that the workforce of the future will rely on, and we need to train federal employees to meet those needs. We also need to advance our technology to make sure that we can keep up and make sure that our workforce is ready to be able to meet those challenges with the technological advances that are going to allow us to do that. And the abundance of data that we're now using and that what technology is offering us to give us insights into daily work and also into how do we keep the challenges of all that data secure. So at OPM, we're working on all these issues and many more. Last year, we developed 4 core principles to help us really guide agencies in how they think about their future of work. So I just want to give those to you because as you're in these agencies or in local state government and thinking through what's the right cadence for your teams, how are you going to ensure that you have the continuity, you have the collaboration, you're embedding that flexibility. We know that we're in a work revolution. We have simply turned the corner in ways that we had really never expected without this pandemic. So first and foremost, we are promoting a flexible and agile workforce. That means greater telework and remote work and flexible work schedules where positions allow them. We're also, we know this is not one size fits all. So we want to empower agencies and leaders across the government to be involved in that decision making and really to promote agency discretion and knowing, again, that one size does not fit all. We also have to think about diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in our workforce. We need to better recruit and retain the best and most diverse talent from all segments. We also have to understand when we're applying these flexibilities, who's taking advantage of them and who can't. Are our managers taking advantage of it and less so members of their team? These are the questions we absolutely need to ask ourselves. And we need to employ that DEI lens in every aspect of the work of how we think to support future of work and so many other areas and functions within agencies. And finally, we need to consider our communities Federal agencies, we have a very large physical footprint. What does it mean on the impact of local communities and economies when making these decisions about the nationwide federal workforce? And we need to account for that. We need to build for the longer-term future, but we also need to ensure that we have a workforce that is skilled, diverse, and engaged. And I will tell you, it opens a lot of opportunities around a larger applicant talent pool for the federal workforce. We now have specifically a remote function on USA Jobs where you can search for jobs that are just listed as remote. So we're certainly leaning into that. But as you can see, we're really in this phase of iteration, of experimentation to figure out what's working, and all of you are a big part of that. So we've been living through this greatest change in how workplace functions, really frankly since the Industrial Revolution, and we have to continue to monitor that. We know that innovation is not just a nice to do, it is absolutely the name of the game. So across government, we're onboarding technology faster. I think this new way of working is really pushing us in that direction. We're expanding opportunities for learning and professional development, and we're adapting and carrying these lessons forward. So the flexibilities I've talked about with remote work and telework are a part of that. And I'll tell you, we have a strong business case. We have the OPM Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey, which hopefully you have taken if you're in the federal government. And it shows a direct connection between increased flexibility and improved engagement. And we're about to see that, I think that same pattern in the FEVS 2022 that will be coming out very soon. And we're also seeing those same data points in the private sector. But it's also important to recognize that throughout the pandemic, half of our government workforce showed up on site every day. So that's more than 50%. So again, my point about equity and what that means and who is actually getting these opportunities, and where in fact in government, we have such varied positions that it's just going to be a different experience depending on your position. So, this is a mix of the things that we're working on. I think there's huge benefits when it comes to how we think about a hybrid work environment, who has the opportunity to do it, what does the job require, and then how do we balance fostering team and organizational culture, how do we get to know our colleagues, how do we promote that kind of impromptu discussions and connections that we know that are so important. And I know this is important to all of you in the work that you're doing, and I know you'll be talking about this later as well throughout the program. So, whether you're serving in the federal level or as a public servant, I know the answer is the same for all of us. And let me just close out that, I'm sure I posed a lot of questions and answers. I wanted to share with you what we're really excited about when it comes to our focus on the workforce, especially early career talent, especially building that bench in the federal government. But I want to tell you how excited I am about your leadership, about the work that you're doing. You are truly the heart and soul of public service. You are the right people in the right roles. You truly bring government policies to life, and your leadership is going to make all the difference in the world and what America needs right now. And I am truly grateful on behalf of this president and this administration for your service in government, whether at the federal, state, or local level. And I wish you all the best in a wonderful summit.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen. Thank you for inspiration and motivation to frame today. Thank you for your leadership. You really shared a lot of the vision, and I think it's just a great way to set up what we're going to be going through today. On behalf of the community, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Let's jump into a quick poll question. So, we talked about a hybrid workforce. So where are you? Where are you working these days? Are you remote? Are you in the office? Are you in the field? Are you hybrid? Are you somewhere in the middle? Let us know where you're at. And while you're doing that, I'd like to talk about our next exciting keynote. We're going to be talking about positively negative. And you're like, wait a minute, did I hear that right? Positively negative? What does that mean? Well, let me explain. To articulate your thoughts and solutions clearly is a critical skill for all of us. However, those who can articulate unpleasant messages when interacting with their managers and senior management are the ones that are going to stand out in the work. We have an awesome keynote speaker, Stephen Krempel. He's CEO of Krempel Communications International. Stephen has worked with thousands of leaders in over 30+ countries. He's an expert in how leaders can stand out and get noticed in their corporations, even in an increasingly competitive global marketplace. He's the creator of Global Executive Mindset and Winning in the Work World. Stephen has accomplished a lot, and he's going to drop a lot of knowledge on us. But before we do that, let's just look at our poll results real quick to see where we are these days. All right, over half are hybrids. That sounds pretty consistent with what we've been hearing. About 27% are remote, about 20% in the office. So thanks for sharing that information. It's useful for us. Stephen, welcome to NextGen. We're so excited to hear you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Doug. Good morning, NextGen Nation. My name is Stephen Krempel, and I'm going to be here with you for the next 30 minutes to talk about positively negative. Imagine this. It was my first 6 months on the job, and my regional HR director, Jason, calls me into his room and says, "Hey, Krempel, I want you to look through all our processes and see if you can find anything that's not working or that's no good, and see if you can improve them." And I'm going, yes, because I love pointing out other people's mistakes. So he said, I'm going to go on a 2 weeks regional trip. When I come back, you kind of tell me your report. Give me your report, right? So he goes off, and I'm reveling in my brilliance. I got every single mistake out that was missing, and then he came back, and then Jason goes, "Hey, Krempel, come on in the office, share what you have." Here's my chance, though. So I went into his office, and he says, "What did you find out?" I said, "Jason, this is missing, this is missing, this is missing, this is not right, this is not right, this is not right." I don't know who was in that position, but they were obviously not doing their job, though. He kept quiet for 3 seconds, and then he said, "I was in the position before you came in." I went, oops, right? Here, I just put my foot in my mouth, though. And then he said this, which changed my entire philosophy around how to operate in an organization, though. He said, "Krempel, just remember this, though. When you're in a meeting with other senior people, and if there's a problem, either they put it in place or they haven't resolved the problem. So please be careful. What you should have said to me was, Jason, if we improve this process, and this process, and we put this, and this in place, we would have a much better functioning organization." And I would have said, "Please carry on." Do you see the difference, ladies and gentlemen? One was I wanting to point out the mistakes. Yes, there are going to be mistakes, and there are going to be things that are wrong. But how you communicate that is very, very important. So let me kind of share with you what I'm going to be covering today for the rest of the session. Why being positive has a little bit more advantages, especially with senior management. I'll give you a little bit about the mindset that is needed to kind of express this, a little bit about the neuroscience and where it comes from. And then I'm going to give you 3 opportunities on where you can show or how being more positive, neutral, or negative makes a big difference. And that's the one-on-one, the conference call, and a presentation. And then right at the end, I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how you can take a negative word and say it more neutrally or more positively, and even give you a couple of phrases and questions to show you the difference. And right at the end, if you stick to the end, I'll show you an additional resource where you can get this, some of the tools right at your fingertips with an app, all right? So let me continue right here. Just by way of background, I worked in 4 Fortune 200 companies, originally in Motorola when it was around as a company. Then I went to PepsiCo. Then I was at Yum Brands, which is KFC, Pizza, Taco Bell. And my last role was the Chief Learning Officer at Starbucks Coffee Company. So hopefully you recognize at least some of those companies, right? And what COVID has done for me it allowed me to republish a couple of my books, The 5% Zone, of which I will share with you how you get a copy of, and game on. And then more recently, last year, I launched Positively Negative, which is what we're going to be talking about. So let me just share and ask you a couple of key things. So have you wished you did not say what you said in a meeting or an event before? You don't have to answer. You probably know that, though, right? Secondly, right? If you could do it all over again, would you rephrase what you said a little differently? Probably so. I've done that myself before, right? And here's the thing, though. Did that interaction cost you either a little bit of your reputation or to lose trust with that person you said it to, or affected a relationship? I know I have. So this is some of the things that you might want to think. When you're thinking of a thought, what you're thinking and what comes out your mouth might be slightly different by the time you get to the end of this presentation. Now, where did this all come from, though? See, we, as Doug said, I teach a program called Global Executive Mindset, or sometimes called the 5% Zone. And in the model, we cover 7 little facets, right? Connecting personally, articulating your points of view clearly, how do you communicate confidently, how do you build trust. But facet number 5 is provide direct feedback, and we're missing the word there, positively, is an important factor, and that comes up the most from all the 7, though. And that's why I decided to write a book specifically on this, because people always have a slightly different view of this, though. In fact, it reminded me of a story. One of the gentlemen in my class, when we came to this section, he put his hand up, and then he said this, "Stephen, my role is to be negative." I mean, I said, "Say that again?" He said, "My role is to be negative." I'm going, "You got to be kidding me, though." He says, "Yes, my role is to tell corporate headquarters why they don't give enough budget, they don't give enough resources, and they don't give us enough headcount." I'm going, then he went on and on about why corporate headquarters or somebody up the chain was not doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? Then the rest of his team started to jump on him and said, "You're the reason why corporate headquarters gives all the best projects to these other groups, because they're not complaining, though." So think about it, though. Your role, yes, is to bring up issues, but how do you bring up the issues is a key difference between how people perceive you or don't perceive you. So I have 3 more questions that I'm going to ask you, and the answer is yes or no. You might want to answer it. You can answer it in the chat or just answer it to yourself, all right? First question. Is not the first question. This is the comments of the class. So, okay, how do you deliver clear and specific feedback in multiple situations? Let me set it up first before I get to the question, right? If we're both positive or negative, and remember, it is not negative, it is at least neutral messages for those key 5% situations, right? And how do you deliver unpleasant news, as Doug said before, to senior management, especially in the key 5% situations? And I'll tell you what those 5% situations are, either neutrally or more positively. And of course, how do you effectively answer a question or inquiries even when you don't have a good answer, though, or you don't know the answer? I will share that with you in a little bit. So here are the 3 questions again, as I promised. Question number 1, does senior management like to hear bad news? Yes or no? Obvious answer, though. Question number 2, does senior management like to hear unwarranted complaints? Now, yes or no? Now, the complaint may be warranted to you, but they don't want to hear it really, though. 3, does senior management like to hear overly negative updates? Probably no, though. Okay? So what do they really want to hear, though? And here's the answer. What they want to hear is solutions, suggestions, and recommendations, not complaints, what's wrong, and what we are not doing. They already know that. That's why they hired you, though, right? And the ones that can really get the solutions, suggestions, and recommendations are the ones that are going to be noticed going forward. So you have that opportunity, with your team or with yourselves, with your seniors though? Are you the ones that providing solutions, suggestions, recommendations, or are you the one that's always complaining, telling people what's wrong and what we're not doing? Why is this important? Because we say you come across only three ways though. When your name comes up, people are going to say, are you positive? Are you neutral? Or are you negative? Right? It doesn't matter though. Even though people say this, well, Stephen, we love your forwardness and straightforwardness and frankness, and we appreciate that. Then you leave the room, then they go to each other. Is he always such a stick in the mud? What did you hear? We appreciated your frankness and straightforwardness, but actually what they thought of you is you were a stick in the mud, though. So please be careful, though. It's not what they say in front of you, it's what people say about you when you leave the room, though. All right, so here it comes. So I promised you that we had a couple of neuroscience studies, but just a very high level, right? Journal of Language and Social Psychology, they're talking about the relative power of negativity. Of course, there's a negative bias. Negative is more powerful and stronger, especially at the social level and when you're interacting with people. They remember it more, though. Second, Psychology Today, words can change your brain, the neuroscience of communication. This is when they did an fMRI, and it scanned your brain when they were flashing the word no, and what it did was release dozens of hormones and neurotransmitters that were released in terms of causing stress, right? So just with one word no, though, all right? And then the last one was just in a HBR, Harvard Business Review, article talking about the neurochemistry of positive conversations, and negative comments and conversations stick with us much longer. In fact, we know that it takes 4 positives to override 1 negative. So if you're giving negative all the time, you better have a lot of positives to override that, because that's the only thing people are going to remember, even though it is correct. All right, so that's the caveat, right? So what are some of the mindset that you need to have? And this is a particular mindset, both from the book, The 5% Zone, which you're going to get, by the way, and I'll share with you how you're going to get this. See, there are only 2 numbers, though, okay? 95 and 5. See, 95% of the time, you can be who you are. I can't really change you. You can't change. However, 5% of the time, when you are in the presence of somebody 2 levels above you or higher, you might need to switch the way you communicate with them, things that are not going on well or wrong. I'm not saying you don't bring it up. I'm saying you need to be able to switch to something a little bit more neutral or positive. Otherwise, they will not be listening to you as effectively as if you're the one who is always complaining. Are you following along with me? I'm not saying you avoid the issue. How you bring it up is a very big difference. Now, some people go, well, Stephen, then that's not being very authentic. You see, I'm an authentic person. I'm 100% the same all the time. No, you're not, though. I guarantee you, okay? In the office, you act one way. At home, you act one way. When you go out with for drinks or a meal with your old college buddies, reliving your good times, you act totally different, though. And if you had to go to the White House, I guarantee you don't act like the way when you went out drinking. And if you had a place of worship that you went to, you act totally different, though. So we change our behavior based on our role, though, all right? So as a supervisor, what does your senior management expect of you at your next level? Why? Because if you're not behaving like that, then you're not ready as one of the elements for that next role, okay? So it's very, very important. Your mindset and your behavior is very, very important. So this whole thing about authenticity, please be authentic within your role. You are an authentic leader, you're an authentic friend. If you were married, you are an authentic son or daughter-in-law. You're an authentic fan when you go and support your team, and you're an authentic person for any place of worship that you go to or practice, right? We change our authenticity based on our role. So why? because this is what I find people sometimes get into trouble by thinking they are 100% the same all the time. Nobody really is, though, all right? So I have to be true to myself, and I tell it like it is, and I'm 100% all the time, always gets many people into trouble. Now, this is because it has to do with your messaging, though. What is your intention, or what was the intention that you were trying to produce? So let me just share with you the 3 intentions, and then a little story about how that affected me myself, okay? Number 1, you can either be negative, which is you're there to blame, complain, criticize, or find fault. We all know that one. Or you can be neutral. I can relay information, I can point some stuff out, or I can share an idea. Or you want to be positive. I'm there to solve something, provide suggestions. I'm there to impress people or compliment what's going on. These 3 are very, very different, depend on your intention. So let me give you another example. When I first started working, I was working for my brother. He was the general manager of a company, and I was doing a sales job, kind of learning my ropes, right? And then one day, my sales manager had the cheek to give my customer to my colleague, though. I'm going, what is this, though? So I was livid, though. So that night, I was planning. I'm going to go tomorrow morning and tell Donald off because he gave my stuff to Alan, and that's supposed to be my customers, and I'm going to lose all the commission. I'm going to tell him, I'm going to go in front of the office because it was open office concept, and I'm going to make him look bad. So I rehearsed that in my head. Next morning came, I rose up from my chair, went to him, and I said exactly that. Donald, you gave the customer to ABC to Alan. That's my customer. I don't know why you did that. He's getting the commission. I did all the work. Yada, da, 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 da. Donald didn't even react, though. I looked like an idiot in front of everybody in the office, though, right? However, that was because my intention was to be negative. I could have had either neutral or positive intention and go up to Donald and say, hey, Donald, I think it might be a mistake. You gave the XYZ customer to Alan. Why don't we bring that up and discuss it at the next meeting, and we'll kind of resolve it, though. Do you see the difference, though? It is totally different based on my intention. So, ladies and gentlemen, right? You have an opportunity to uplift and make a difference to your team. One of the ways is watch how you communicate, not only within the team, but up the organization, right? Here are the 5 situations that your senior management will see or hear you. And here are the opportunities either to be negative or to be positive. 1, the one-on-one meeting. 2, the meeting, either a functional meeting or a large town hall or all-hands meeting. A conference call or virtual call nowadays, the presentation that you made or the company social. Those are the interactions that people remember about you, whether you're positive, neutral, or negative. So let me just share with you then a one-on-one example. I remember I'm going to share with you 3 different examples. So here's a one-on-one you're having with a senior leader. And the senior leader said, what are some things that are wrong and we could do better around here? And then you could say, in a negative way, wow, thanks for asking. There's just so many things that are not right around here. First, there's X, and then there's Y, and Z absolutely doesn't work for us. Second, we don't have enough of Y. And third, oh my gosh, who came up with that crazy XYZ policy? It's not even fair. That's one way of saying it. Or you could be a little more neutral, right? Thank you for asking the question. I do have a couple of observations, and we need to review X and Y and Z and make them work better. Second, we could do with a little bit of more of Y. And third, policy XYZ may need some work. See, it's not fair. It just needs some work. So you be a little bit more neutral, right? Or you could even do something like this. Thank you for asking the question, Stephen. I have a couple of observations and recommendations. Firstly, if we add A for X, Y, and Z, it would work a lot better. Secondly, by having more of Y, we could get more efficient And third, with a few adjustments to policy X, Y, Z, it could work even better for everyone. Why am I saying this to you? Because even in a one-on-one, you have to think through how you want to come across them. Positive, neutral, negative, and if you're looking to be more neutral and negative, you will find the words to make it come out that way. Are you guys following along with me though? All right? Okay, let me share a couple of more examples on the one-on-one, right? So you reach a point where you must update on Project X, right? You're working on Project X, which needs more resources. This is not exactly good news, but you don't know where your leader stands on the priority, right? So you could go like this. We have fallen behind on Project X, and I'm sad to say we will not be able to meet the customer's deadline at all. All my people are tied up on other projects, and unless I get more budget or headcount, I don't know what else to do. It almost sounds like you're giving up, throwing in the towel, and complaining. Or you could say, I'd like to share an update for Project X. Timelines will be tough to meet as everyone on my team is working on other prioritized projects. Unless we can reprioritize them and get some additional resources, the current situation will carry on a little longer. Do you see how we're tempering it down a little bit? Okay? Or, of course, there's another one. All right? So you see the difference. Now there's a conference call. 2 or 3 individuals are dominating the discussion. Now, I know that never happens to you, but you can picture that, right? So, and we had no chance, you had no chance to participate thus far. And the leader on the call says, any questions or comments? And you go, Jim brought up an excellent point about A, B, C, and Sally's point about X, Y, and Z were perfect. I believe I can get supply chain to get behind and support those ideas. See, that's simple. It's positive, you agree, yada, yada. But what happens if you do not agree with those ideas, but you want to bring it up a little bit more neutral? Okay? Jim brought up an excellent point about A, B, C, and Sally's point about X, Y, Z were fantastic. I believe with a few tweaks, I could get supply chain to get behind and support those ideas. See, you're saying that you need a few tweaks to get supply chain to get behind those ideas. Or you could go, no, I think supply chain won't buy those ideas though. Your choice though, ladies and gentlemen, right? See the difference though. What is your intention and what are the words that come out, even though you know supply chain is not going to get behind or whomever it may be, right? So if you tend to communicate that way, the no way, of course, what impression will you have left at the end of the call? You may not have been thought of as team player. Worse still, people would get around and word would get around that you're not collaborative. Just a suggestion, if you really feel like you need to object, and then maybe try something like this, right? Jim brought up an excellent point about A, B, C, as well as Sally's point about X, Y, Z were fantastic. I see where you're coming from. I may have to bring the others in supply chain along with us, as I don't believe they will buy into the idea as is. So ladies and gentlemen, very simple. It's all about word choice, and it's very, very important. So let me give you the third example here about the presentation. So let's say you were trying to solve customer's problem. There are a lot of problems. So you could do a presentation this way, right? You're opening one, trying to solve the customer's problem. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to share the problems we have been facing and point out where we have not done enough and been lacking in dealing with all the complaints the customers have been making. Now, I know that may be the situation, but you can see this as a really negative way of thinking. Now you go into a transition. In the next section, I'd like to highlight the second biggest problem and what ABC department failed to do and what the customer is looking for and we are not doing. Holy moly, though, right? And the third is closing your presentation. I've laid out all the problems our customers are having in detail and have outlined the procedures where we are not able to address and hopefully suggest to fix them. Thank you. I'm not going to solve this problem for you, this word, but you can see where you can easily make this sound a little bit more neutral or more positive. even though there's a problem, right? So here's the biggest thing about presentations. It's really not about the presentation, it's really about the Q&A. And here's the biggest thing about Q&A. What do you say if you don't have an answer besides, can I get back to you on that? You don't really look good if every time your response is, can I get back to you? So in the book, Positively Negative, we give 12 different responses. Let me just share with you a couple here. One, that's a great question. What I know at this point is, say what you know, not can I get back to you? Because if every meeting is can I get back to you, you're dead. We need a little more time to get the accurate number. However, my best estimate is, or we need a little more time to get the information. I prefer to give you the answer when I'm 100% sure. Or what we know now is ABC. What you are inquiring about, I don't have at this moment. You need to have a few of these in your back pocket to bring up, other than, can I get back to you? Because that doesn't look good, especially if you've done it all the time, all right? Next. So here are a couple of word sets I'm gonna go through for you. Here's the negative word is problem, the neutral is issue and situation, and negative is issue, question, suggestions, and then blocks, constraints, opportunities. So I'm just gonna show you as an example here, phrases. These problems will cause us to miss the deadline again. That's a negative. Let's prevent this issue from allowing us to miss the deadline, or let's correct the situation as that we can meet the deadline. Missing the deadline and meeting the deadline is a negative or positive way of saying the same thing, though, all right? I'm not gonna read these questions because you're gonna have the resources with you, but I'm gonna share the next one so that you can realize how easy it is if you have the right words. So issue, question, suggestion, same thing. We have a definite issue with Project X. I have a question about Project X, or a quick suggestion on Project X. Again, same thing, totally different way depending on your intention. And again, there are questions that you can rephrase to talk about whether it's negative, neutral, or positive. And the third word track. Remember blocks, constraints, and opportunities? Here's the same one. There are just so many blocks to get this project completed. Oh my goodness gracious, right? Or we need to have a few constraints to get this project completed, or we have a few opportunities to deal with and complete the project on time. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, all I'm here to tell you is being positive, neutral, negative goes back to word choice. What we normally do is give people phrases that are negative and ask them to rephrase it, and everybody finds a much better way of saying it. Of course, we're not going to do it here, right? However, this carries over to your emails, though. So please be careful, though. How many of you know someone who tends to write emails that are a little negative or worse, go on and on, though? All right? I don't know about you, but when I was a senior leader, if you write me 5 paragraphs and at the end of the paragraph you say, Stephen, I need your approval on, I'm not reading your 5 paragraphs. Please take the line, I need your approval, put it in the front, right at the top, and say, Stephen, I need your approval on this. Here are the details below, though. If I have time, I'll read them, though. If not, I'll answer your question. Please carry on, and you would not have wasted my time. Are you following along with me, though? All right? So please be careful. It carries over into the emails as well. So very, very quickly here, how do your people tend to communicate? 1, generally more negatively or positively. How do they effectively bring up bad news? Are they more negative or more positive? How do they talk about each other in their absences? All right. How do they communicate with other teams on touchy issues? Is it negative or positive? How do they reply to senior management when they don't have an answer? And how do they write neutrally or always point out negatives in emails? And it's just a very quick way here of summarizing. So here's what I promised you. If we have an app called Winning in the Work World, and I'll show it to you on the next slide. The book, The 5% Zone, is downloadable for free. You can go there and you'll get a whole bunch of other ideas of how you can be more visible in the organization. Here's the QR code for them. And why I want to show you this is because if you can see on the far right, positive word set, we have the positive word sets of negative, neutral, and positive words that are so important for you to be able to be a little bit more positive or neutral in the work world. And I'm going to leave this up for a few more seconds and have one last slide to share. Okay, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the slide says, sometimes in organizations, we regret the chances we didn't take, the relationships we didn't take the time to build, and the times we were too negative and headstrong, leaving damaging consequences for ourselves. All right? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you've gotten some ideas here about how you can be a little bit more positive, especially in your roles when you're dealing with senior leaders. In fact, with your peers and even your subordinates, you should be approaching it if you have the right words in your head. And please, thank you very much, though.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for the pearls of wisdom, the ways that we can best stand out as leaders, and also ways that we can positively shift our communication. These were great, and there's a lot of amazing tidbits that we have to take away. And before we wrap up the closing keynote, I have closing comments to share, and we're going to be pushing out our last poll, which is, what is your experience in government? Here we have a few GS levels for you to select, SES, and also state and local numbers of years in service. And while you're taking that poll, I'm going to share a few quick reminders before we log off this session. So don't forget to fill out those CPE evaluation forms in order to get your credit. And if you haven't already, make sure to head over to the exhibit hall to check out our booths. They're filled with additional information and resources. And then to head back to the conference room, up next is our first round of breakout sessions. So you can access that session by going to that conference hall in the main environment, and make sure to plan to attend one of the breakout sessions starting at 11:15 Eastern Time. And don't worry, a link to the on-demand event will be emailed out tomorrow so you can access or review a session that you might have missed today. And then lastly, we just wanted to give a special thank you again to the NextGen Alliance partners. But before we shift to that session, let's look at the polling results. And this again was, what is your experience in government? So it looks like we have quite a few GS 11s to 13s, some 14s to 15s, and also some state and local who've been around 10 years. That's the majority, and also some 11 to 20 and 20 plus. Well, thank you all for your service, and thank you for joining us today. And I hope you enjoy the first breakout session.